about this kind of reaction and what they see?
Absolutely, because they try to control every aspect of our life. They are threatened by the presence of a flag, which they removed from her casket. They're threatened by the presence of Palestinian kafila. They're threatened by all of these people coming together and saying how much they love her. They're threatened by a walking procession in the streets of Jerusalem. They're threatened by everything because they know what they've done here is a war crime. They know that their existence is illegal.
I haven't actually been able to see, but I imagine that what we're looking at here is that the Republic must have emerged from the church and is now making its way down this street. And the mass gathering here is following it out into the street. And as we were discussing a little bit earlier with Father Fadi, what happens now would be interesting because normally her body would be brought to her final resting place. But it could be that the Israeli soldiers and police will insist that she goes by car.
As I said, even in death, they're trying to control our mourning. They refuse to let Shireen be free, even in death. And they refuse to allow us to mourn and to celebrate this fantastic woman, as she deserves to be mourned and deserves to be celebrated.
She really was a household name, wasn't she? Everybody knew her.
Every person knew her. She was a person who she started in Jazeera in 1997 during the height of the second Palestinian uprising, which was from 2000 onward. She was in every single Palestinian house. I personally recall in 2002 in Jenin, when she was in the refugee camp in Jenin, and when Israel committed its massacre in Jenin, that she was the person who best covered what happened inside Jenin. And it's so tragic that her outstanding coverage in Jenin 20 years ago, this very month, has now led to Israel's killing of her 20 years ago, 20 years later.
What was it about her reporting? Was it an empathy? What was it?
It was a few things. Shireen didn't care about meetings between high-level officials. She didn't look for secret documents. She didn't care about what went on behind closed doors. She cared about how the occupation impacted lives. She went into people's homes. Sometimes she knew them, and oftentimes she didn't. But she had a way of expressing and telling the world what the occupation actually means on a personal level for individuals. She had an incredible quality to her voice. Her voice exuded compassion, it exuded humanity. And it wasn't just her voice, it was her entire manner, because she genuinely loved people and genuinely was outraged by Israel's action and wanted the world to see it. She wanted the world to see it, and she did a fantastic job at showing and highlighting and expressing to the world exactly what Israel was doing. She entered into every Palestinian house and into the house of every single Arabic speaker.
And kids used to imitate her, didn't they?
They did. She had a fantastic send-off. She would say her name and then pause for about a second. She would say where she was reporting from. And many children used to stand in front of the mirror emulating her send-off. But it wasn't just her send-off. I really hope that they learned the lessons of her actual reporting, of getting down and understanding and telling the story of occupation through the lives of people, not just through secret documents or government documents or meetings or all of those sorts of things. She cared about people.
You know, I went to her office yesterday and saw her very office where she used to go every day, and it's terribly sad, of course. But I also heard from Rania, one of our producers there, just talking about how a woman came like an hour and a half, 2.5 hours away from a remote village, and she didn't know her personally, but she said, I just had to come because she was just so much part of my life.
That's right. She was part of everybody's life. All these people that you're seeing here, many of them didn't know her personally, but they felt as though they did, because she had a way of really expressing and amplifying exactly what it's like to live as a Palestinian. She touched everybody's hearts.
You, as a professional, you are a human rights lawyer. Where do you see this story going as far as human rights is concerned and the legal case?
You know, human rights don't exist in a vacuum. They require people to actually push for human rights to exist. And this is now incumbent upon every country to be demanding that Israel be held accountable. I'll say this time and again. If the Israeli army had not been in Jenin, Shireen would not have been in Jenin. It's just that simple. And so Israel is entirely to blame. Israel is entirely accountable. It must be held to account. And we saw a number of diplomats come and attend her funeral today. I'm hoping that this is the beginning and not the end. I hope they just didn't come to pay their respects and then move on and turn their eyes, as they have over the course of the past 7.5 decades. I hope that finally they realize that this shouldn't be allowed to continue on in the year 2022. You know, every human rights organization has declared that this is apartheid. We've seen that the Committee to Protect Journalists has also documented Israel's violations when it comes to press freedom. It's time for the world to stand up and to put sanctions on Israel, because without that, Israel's never going to learn anything. It's just going to turn around and in a few days do the exact same thing again. It might not be to a Shireen Akleh, it might not be to a journalist, but it's definitely going to be to another Palestinian.
Can you see that happening?
The international sanctions? Yes, I do. I firmly believe that it has taken, while it's taken the world a long time to get to this place, the world's starting to open up its eyes and see that Israel shouldn't be allowed to bomb the buildings of the Associated Press or the building of the Al Jazeera offices. That it shouldn't be allowed to. A year ago, today actually. That it shouldn't be allowed to break the arm of Jafar Badr. It shouldn't be allowed to kill Palestinian journalists. But it also shouldn't be allowed to maintain a brutal occupation and deny an entire people their freedom.